If somebody goes police on you, you can get arrested. And you can show me, we'll be.
Okay, let's talk about Cyberlaw before this camera picks up something it's not supposed to hear. All right? So we're going to talk about Cyberlaw. And what is Cyberlaw? Well, it is law that concerns the digital age, the age we're living in now. We're going to talk about cyberspace, e-commerce, and all the challenges that go along with it. And part of it is the origin of the internet. What was the origin of the internet? Well, many years ago, the U.S. military asked this organization called DARPA, which is the Defense Advanced Research Administration, DARPA, to put together a method of transmission of information in huge amounts at great speed, utilizing brand new technology. And so DARPA went to work on it. And the original internet was called DARPANet. And it was only military. And it was set up between military bases and their command centers. So that is the origin of it. It became widely popularized and presented itself, started to be used widely back in, when did I get my first home desktop computer? Back in the 90s was when the internet was starting to take off. And we were using, remember DOS? The very first DOS computers that were on the top of desks and that sort of thing. They got started with the telephone internet. Remember the old, you don't remember the old dial-ups, do you? Mm-hmm. And the horrible sound it used to make.
You talking about when somebody got on the phone or something?
Oh, that would break your connection, it would destroy the signal, it would just mess up everything, especially if you were trying to get information or just anything. So it was, what we have now, most people don't even recognize the old systems that we have, but I'm going to talk about a little bit about all of them. Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone, and the internet now represents the newest iteration of his telephone technology. Most of us have what we call VoIP, Voice over Internet Protocol, where our telephones are connected to our computers, and we actually get telephones service through our computers or through our television, internet providers, it either is Wi-Fi or line connected. And as usually the case, the law has to catch up because it just isn't there yet. ARPANET was developed by the U.S. Department of Defense. It was a system to create redundant data pathways just in case we got nuked. And that's still a dangerous possibility. That's why we've switched. You remember when they went to fiber optics? Fiber optics is not as disruptable as electron transmission over telephone lines. You know why? Go back to basic science. Telephone lines and telephones transmit signals based on electricity. And electricity can be disrupted by magnetic pulse, can't it? Nuclear attack creates magnetic pulses and can destroy the entire infrastructure of an electronic system. The new system that we have strung all over the country and underground and up into in satellites and everything is both radio wave and interactive light pulses. It is fiber optic light pulse technology, which is not as easily disrupted. And those lines, they're just not a good target. Somebody wants to take out the infrastructure of a country. They're going to set off an electromagnetic pulse, an EMP, which is going to take out like electrical systems and this, that, and the other thing. But fiber optics can keep operating on battery power utilizing the light pulses that it uses. So it's not as easily disrupted. things that we use data sharing for, other than just emergencies, is distance learning. Anybody ever taken a course online? A lot of courses online make up curricula these days. Fisk doesn't use as many as a lot of other universities use, but we're getting there. The reason that I record all these lectures is because if I put them all into Canvas with the slides and the connections to all of the videos, this class can be done by distance learning. And availability of goods and services. Toys R Us is no longer there. Where am I going to get my Marvel action figures? Amazon. Over the internet. It's a data sharing process. Internet banking, data sharing. Wealth management, data sharing. Increasingly, we are relying on our ability to transfer data from point to point. Technology and challenges. Now, every day, every single day, communication is exponentially faster than any other mass communication device when we use the internet and we use computer data transfer. 10 years ago, we were talking about transmission speeds around 56 megabytes per second. Ooh, that's slow. Then 8 years ago, it went to 128 megabytes. And then it went to a gigabyte 5 years ago. Does anybody only have 5 gigabyte transmission speed capability? My home internet. And if you check, you can check on your phone the speed of the internet connection at Fisk. My speed at home, actually, it's very fast. In my office, it's extremely fast. Okay, so all of you will be jamming into my office to use the internet. My capability at home is 1 terabyte per second. I don't know how I got that.
How much you do?
Huh?
How much you do?
It's just the same as my neighbors, and they, you know, it's, Xfinity.
That's one.
That's why.
Yeah, that's what I've done. I was doing 850 megs.
850 megs?
Yeah.
Oh, you might be in a great spot. It's different.
It might be.
That's fast though. Usually people have like 4 megs, 10 megs.
Yeah, that's what they are. They will gradually upgrade all of your speeds, you know, to gigabytes, but I can transmit a terabyte.
So I wonder, is Google Fiber faster than Xfinity?
I don't know, you know, and
Because I see them everywhere. And
I heard it's supposed to be the fastest. Yeah,
they're supposed to be fast.
Fiber optic is way better than.
Fiber optic is better, but I've got fiber optic. And it's funny because the fiber optic, this may be where the thing, it's got 4 fiber optic cables twisted around each other that goes into the node that mine comes off of. And that may be what increases my speed. Okay? Physical and political boundaries don't apply. Countries have a horrible time, we just talked about international law, have a horrible time regulating the internet. Because people go into an internet cafe in China and they can access things in the United States. Now, China does try and block some of it, or a lot of it, but they can't get it all filtered out without taking out their own electronic capabilities. They don't want to do that because their military relies on that kind of thing too. So where do our challenges lie?
We need for being home. to be in like in a different country
Yeah,
and you use like a US IP
yeah.
and you're in a total different country and it's going to seem like you're in the US.
It seems like you're in the United States.
Yeah, there's an IP address. You could be in a different country and like in Nigeria and like using the US IP where when you're in the US.
Well, that's one thing we have to be careful of, is spoofing. And we'll talk, there's a couple of points that I make here later on. We have challenges that involve the First Amendment and the Commerce Clause and privacy and speech. We're always being warned to watch out for our connections because other people might be able to tap into our unsecured data connections, right? That's why here in most of our devices, we have to sign into the device and then sign into the internet node in order to get it to function properly. That's so that the data is encrypted, which means it's scrambled around, and only the people on this end and the people that receive the data can unscramble it. We have what we call public and private keys, and we scramble everything so that the only ones that know what we're saying are them. So there's a privacy issue because people are always trying to intercept our codes. That's why they send us those emails that say, oh, your email's down, we're having to reduce your account, click here to increase the speed of your account and reduce everything. And it downloads a bot onto your computer, which messes everything up and steals all your information. There's also, well, there's a number of ways to do that, but that's a lot of the ways they do. They get us to download things ourselves, so we have to be real careful. Taxation has always been a problem with the internet. Taxation must not be accomplished in a manner which would have a chilling effect on interstate commerce. That means if one place is going to do it, everybody has to do it, so that every transaction either is taxed or is not taxed. Back in the 90s, when the internet, we first started using Amazon on the internet to order things, or other places to order things, we didn't have to pay tax. Everything was tax-free. Not so. Now, if you notice, anything you order off of any of these sites has the tax added, because computers have advanced to the point where once you enter your financial information, it takes the appropriate amount of tax and immediately remits it back to the state of origin. There was a moratorium on internet taxation of commerce until 2001. They did not extend it. So you can tell how long it's been since I updated this particular slide. It's been a long time. They did not come up with a solution. The solution was let everybody tax it just the way they do when you walk into a mom and pop shop. And then we talked about sufficient contacts within a state when we were talking about interstate commerce. You have to have a certain number of contacts. If you have those contacts, a majority of the 9, then you can tax it. The First Amendment does not protect speech known as fighting words. These have the effect of inciting immediate violence, even over the internet. And what problems did we have with the last election that would give us pause to think about the First Amendment?
Some tampering.
Tampering. I have one friend who I know was a really strong Republican to begin with. She allowed somebody to take over her Facebook account. And they were just sending this stuff out right and left. And I'm just like, who writes this stuff? They think we're actually going to believe it? Well, I guess some people did believe it. But tomorrow we have a chance to fix it. Tomorrow's voting day, if you haven't already early voted. I did. I voted 2 weeks ago. So, my opinion is in.
Well, like there.
Maybe.
Done.
Spamming. Spamming is protected by commercial speech, but it can be regulated by Congress just as any interstate commerce or advertising can be. So what has happened recently with spamming? Oh, by the way, where did the name come from? Don't you just love that name, spamming?
The food, like the food.
Yeah, and what is it?
There's a whole bunch of different stuff.
It's
A whole
salty.
bunch of different stuff that you don't.
A whole bunch of different cuts of pork that's all stuffed in a can, and,
It was fine.
you know?
Ate that shit that time?
Used to.
When I was at camp, when my parents would send me away to camp because they got tired of me, I would go to camp and we would have Spam and eggs.
Sounds like torture.
It really was rather tasty, actually. Got me ready for army food, let me put it that way.
Okay.
But spam, what's been happening with spam lately? Not the food,
It's like cyberbots with the.
yeah.
Yeah, they're trying to, they said they'll crack down on them, I don't think they're really, to be honest. Cause there's still fake accounts out there, people making them constantly, even if you try to delete it, here's another one.
The only way to take care of spam is to do what?
You got, well, I wish you could identify someone that's not real when they make an account, but they have that and still just pass.
That's true, it's still difficult to identify the real from the not so real. But if you put your contact's name into your email account, so that the name of the person, if it comes from that person, it goes directly into your inbox, and everything else goes into your junk mail, then all you have to do is run through your junk mail once or twice a week, which is what I do. And I never find anything I can use, so I end up deleting it. But that's the major way of getting rid of spam. I get all kinds of spam, weird stuff. Spyware can invade privacy, but it's legal in some instances and may not violate privacy under federal court rulings. Federal courts have said that if an employer wants to put spy bots on your computer at work, they can, because that time in which you're using that computer is theirs. So if you have a work computer, what's to keep you from ordering groceries? Well, nothing. But if your boss finds out that you're doing it on work time and not your own time, then you could be in trouble. On the other hand, if employers are making you work longer hours so you don't have time to go shopping for groceries, and you could go online and order them and have them sent to your house, which a lot of places do now, then you should be allowed to do that. Now, that's my personal opinion. That's also the court's opinion. There have been several court cases according to that. So there should be some leeway given if the employer is regulating and demanding extra work hours. Four varieties of spyware are currently in use. These are all very similar. Specific programs such as I Am Big Brother, which is a program which is put onto a computer by using a USB drive. Prudence, Silent Guard, Spectre, and What, Where Investigator. When, What, Where Investigator. Those are all examples of spyware that can be put on someone's computer. They all do different things. They all send information to somebody you don't want to have it. Ads on freeware. You know, we go into Google Play and it's got ads on the Weather Channel, and the ads pop up and you see them and you say, oh, that one looks pretty good. I just found out what the weather is. I'll go out and look at this ad. Well, that freeware ad may not be entirely good for your computer or for your phone or whatever. Net BIOS transmissions from processors. The United States government, when we were selling computers to Iran, put a little tiny program on the BIOS. You know what BIOS are? Anybody not know what a BIO is in a computer? It's okay if you don't. I had to learn all this stuff. The BIOS is what starts up the computer. It tells the computer what its name is, where it is, what it's supposed to be doing, and it's supposed to access the hard drive to load the programs. That's what the net BIOS are. And sometimes the United States government would put these net BIOS things on computers that were being sold to foreign lands that they wanted to get information from. And so Iran would regularly be transmitting information through United States satellites based on the information that was being generated by the net BIOS and the access that the government had to those computers. So that's another type of spyware. Software update modules. Be very careful of these. If you have an older computer that has like Windows 7 on it and they're not being supported by Microsoft anymore, be very careful when you go out to update spots that say, we can update all of the your old Windows 7 software. Be very, very careful of those. They have to be reputable. You maybe want to find out from Microsoft if they are reputable, because what can happen is that it will load an update all right, but it will be spyware, or it will manipulate your computer, all right? Legitimate uses for spyware: to safeguard your own family against predators. These days, predators will go after youngsters, teenagers, anybody that you need to know about or care about. And so what you may find happening is that parents will put what we call a backdoor program. It's a program that accesses all of the other programs on the computer when they sign into it, but it's a special program that only they can get into, that allows them to see who their child has been talking to online. Sometimes those are very good to have and will safeguard your family against predators. The courts have said that they're okay. And to ensure that employees are using only their computers for company-endorsed activities. I make sure that I use the computer that Fisk gave me only for Fisk activities, period. I don't even open up any other websites other than Canvas, CAMS, and the Fisk site. Proxy mode doesn't work when you have a spybot or a backdoor access mode.
But privacy mode, they just don't track cookies and like history and stuff like that.
Privacy mode, sometimes I think they work, sometimes I think they don't work, sometimes I think they're overblown, sometimes I think they're fine. It just depends. It all comes down to be careful, right? The courts only see technological innovation as a way of relieving burdens of overloaded dockets in the courts. America is the most litigious nation in the world since the Second World War. And if they're going to catch up with all the load that's being put on them, they have to use computers. And you know, now, attorneys, I'll tell you, attorneys can file cases online without ever going into the clerk's office. We can file motions, we can file briefs, we can file everything that we need to do online with a secure HTTPS hypertext protocol. Yeah, Larry?
Now with that, just because a lot of like hackers and things like that, how does how would the legal people handle it? Because I know a lot of government stuff is still hacked too, with all the secure websites and all that stuff. So what do lawyers do when that happens, or what's the steps to take? Because I don't think anything is secure anymore with technology.
Okay, here's what happens in a lot of jurisdictions. You can file online, But what they tell you is that the document that you file online must be presented to the clerk within 10 days. That way, there's not only a hard copy, but there is the copy that goes through electronically. And if anything is changed or lost or destroyed or hacked, they will have the paper document until the court case is finished. And that's very, very good protocol to have to back things up. Paper trails are always good. That's why you still see lawyers' offices and courthouses and that have filing boxes full of court cases and things. Yes, it's good to be able to file electronically, and it's fast to file electronically, and it gets the case moving quicker, but sometimes you have to refer to the original written, printed document. The only way to get rid of that is either to shred it or burn it. So, like taxes, caseloads in courts always expand, they never contract or are reduced. So they can be shifted, but the burden is never reduced. So we have to make sure that everything is done just the way we're supposed to do it. Jurisdiction in cyberspace is defined as the scope of authority of a state, which is a country. Within the state, the scope of its various tribunals. So within it is the jurisdiction of the country and all of the courts and tribunals within that country. That is the jurisdiction in cyberspace. International jurisdiction, the Internet's ability to bypass political and geographic boundaries, makes it almost revolutionary. It undermines the traditional basis for a court to exercise personal jurisdiction for a violation. Because on the internet, the court can reach out, and as Larry pointed out, can hack. Court investigators could hack people's background and documents. And here's the thing, when you go for a job, you're going to apply for an internship, or you're going to apply for a position, or you're going to go for grad school. I'm going to tell you to sanitize all of your social media accounts. You only put the things on there that show nice family pictures, nice family vacations or vacations with your friends, no alcohol, no roughhousing, no weird pictures of stuff. I'll just leave it at that. Leave that to your imagination. You all know which room concept of weird is probably. The last thing I saw was a former scout of mine who was running for a state senate seat in the 54th district here in Tennessee. His opponent was reduced to going through and data mining his Facebook account and getting personal photographs off there of when he was a Boy Scout and trying to make fun of those pictures. It doesn't work when you're trying to make fun of a Boy Scout. It just shows that they're a Boy Scout.
So, two things. Why did you, I definitely know why you said to sanitize. My question is, why does our social medias or our personal life, what does it have to do with us going for a job or grad school? Because I know a lot of people socially who are extremely successful, but socially they are like inappropriate, like no class at all. But when it comes to their career profession, they're doctors, when it comes to their career profession, they're totally different people. Like to the point where I don't even want to be around them because I'm like, wait a minute, you're a different person. So why does that play a huge role? Because it says only in America.
It depends from country to country, from location to location, and company to company as to what's important. And they do things. For example, a few weeks ago, I started noticing I was getting hits from on my social media accounts from the Department of Defense, the Department of the Army, the U.S. Army Reserve components, and I knew what they were doing. They're updating my security clearance. They want to make sure that I'm on the straight and narrow still, like I always was. But they might want me to do something or be involved with, say, a program here at Fisk that has military funding, and they want to know that people have good security clearances. Stuff like that. It's not like they're gonna call me up. I'm a little senior for that.
And then, one other thing is, cause when I hired someone before, I would go on Facebook and like search their name up.
Mm-hmm.
Do people of higher authority, they don't do that, right? They have like special systems that they use?
They have people to which they have access. Some of them are better than others. Some of them can find just about anything. Some of them are not good at finding anything. Some of them have instructions not to just find the bare minimum, just enough to satisfy whatever criteria it is that they're working with. You know, so it just depends. It just depends. Be very careful with what you do with social media. If you look at my social media, my LinkedIn has all professional information on it. My Twitter has all professional information on it. My Facebook is all family and friends.
And Instagram?
I do, yes. And that's also family and friends.
What about Snapchat?
I do not Snapchat.
You will like Snapchat.
I do not Snapchat. It's insecure, unsecure,
Oh,
not cyber secure.
Okay.
okay.
All right. Jurisdiction in general. The United Nations has been studying general jurisdiction for a long, long time. They have not come to any conclusions. And I'll stop with that. Current problems, old law, new applications. See this guy, he looks like he's about back from the 1950s, and that computer of his looks like it's from the 1960s. I wouldn't have been surprised if this guy had a card punch out here. There was a big IBM sitting over here for him to run the cards on. That's how old our law is, basically, with most cyber applications. We have problems with trademarks and domain names because so many things sound the same or look the same, and people are not registering them. They're just going out and calling themselves whatever they want without signing up for trademarks and domain names for their various creations. Patents for new technological products. Well, patents are always patentable. That's not a redundant, is it? But what is a patent? It's a process. It is a creation or mechanical thing. It is. It's now been applied to processor charts. It's now been applied to various types of software. So patents have to be kept up with, and they've started to look at that. Another problem we have is in music. Do you know what a music problem would be with cyberspace and computers?
Pirating music, but illegal downloads.
Pirating is one thing. That's true. Illegal downloads. What else?
Using someone's like beat to their song without their permission.
Okay. What exactly is that? There are 30 computer constructed, I don't want to call them singlets because they're not. They're melodies, they are beats, they are things that are changed, and they are proven to get a hit record every time one of those is applied to a new song that somebody is writing. And I turn on the internet radio, iHeart or what's the other one? Pandora, or there's another one I also use.
Series radio.
Spotify. I use those three, and yes, I do listen to new music. because I like to hear what they're doing and how it's coming out, and I'm hearing the same patterns repeated over and over and over again, and I looked at it, and they are all in the public domain. Anybody can use them. So how do we copyright a new song if the phraseology of the song is all in the public domain? Or a computer program? I don't know. This is one of the problems we have. This is what copyrights for artists' works and software. This all runs together. CSAC got the new copyright law pushed. If you go in and you look at Mr. Collins, Pat Collins' lecture that I have up on your Canvas site, and you look at all the stuff he was talking about, intellectual property and music, it's just mind-boggling. And they finally got a law hammered out where producers and writers and artists are all going to get fair share residuals from Spotify and Pandora and iHeartRadio and all the other digital ones, which before this were very, very pushy about keeping people away and keeping the money in their own pocket. Okay, free access, speech and privacy, indecency and money. Let's talk about the First Amendment. You know, using the web to annoy another person is a criminal act, and in fact, in some states, it is now not just a crime, a misdemeanor, but if you use the computer and you stalk someone and you harass them and they commit suicide, you may be able to be held liable, depending on the state, for manslaughter. The Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, or COPA, of 1998, it's 20 years old, but it's still relatively new, and it's changing. And this defines how and what parents and providers of the internet can and should do to protect children on the internet from predators. International sites with objectionable speech or spam. Well, these international sites, I mean, you go to, what do you think is the biggest online content genre that there is?
YouTube?
It's a 4-letter word.
Vivo?
Porn. It is porn. And that is where, and international sites not only have objectionable speech, but objectionable video content as well. And so they are international, and there's not a whole lot we can do about it. People have access to. Spam, of course, we talked about spam, and then encryption. And encryption is very, very important, where we're sending messages back and forth. Privacy in monetary transactions, we have to be very careful. We have to use pipeline encryption and multi-layer encryption. Defamation and privacy, we have to be careful. We say it's permanent. It's always going to exist on the internet, forever and ever and ever. Amen. State laws on encryption. States are requiring, you recall that cell phones have become a big issue for the police and for law enforcement agencies because of their ability to encrypt to the point where the police cannot open them and search them. That is an issue. And so there are state laws on encryption that either affect that or do not affect that. And then international e-commerce. There are a lot of times when people will buy things on international electronic commerce, and it goes bad, and they can't get their money back. How many of you have ordered something online, a piece of clothing, and it looks really great online in the photographs, and then you get it, and it looks like it was made for a poodle? That has happened, I'm sorry to say more often than we would like. You can't get your money back. Cybercrime could go from felonies to misdemeanors. And is antitrust, is it just good business? Well, it depends. Depends on how big the predator is. If Microsoft, you remember Netscape, AOL, AT&T,
Wait, what's
can
the-
these be considered to be online predators? If they're overcharging, are they a predator? A financial predator? Yeah, Larry.
What's AOL? I keep hearing that.
America Online was one of the first internet community providers.
Okay, I keep hearing it a lot.
It's not been around for a few years now. So, if there's no competition for what you're trying to do you go out and invent some? Maybe, because otherwise, if you don't help somebody else get started, somebody can come in and accuse you of being a monopolist. Okay, that's what I have on Cyberlaw. I'm gonna post this, I'm gonna post the slides, and that's it.